This video is the second of a four-part series in breaking down order of operations problems. And by the end of this video, you should be able to answer the following question. How do I evaluate a numerical expression using the order of operations? So again, I want to revisit our order of operations. First, we do parentheses or grouping symbols, and that can be brackets or parentheses. Then we do exponents. The third step is going to be multiplication and division from left to right, and that means you have to do whatever comes first. And then the fourth step is add and subtract from left to right. Again, in that step you also have to do whatever comes first. So part one went through adding and subtracting from left to right. Now we're going to make the problems a little bit more involved, and we're going to include multiplication and division as well as adding and subtracting. So here are some examples. I'm going to work through these with you, and then you'll have an opportunity to work on some by yourself. So when we look at order of operations, we said first we have to do parentheses or grouping symbols. Secondly, we said exponents. Third, we said multiplication or division from left to right. And lastly, we said adding and subtracting from left to right. So if we go in order, we don't have any parentheses or exponents here, so we have to start with any multiplication or division. All right, and my suggestion is that you put a box around or circle or underline any multiplication and division that you're going to do first. So for example, in number 1, I see multiplication right away, negative 4 times 2. I then see a plus 3, which is addition. Then I see a subtraction sign. And after the subtraction sign, I see another multiplication. Okay? Because both numbers, the negative 9 and 5, are in parentheses, that means multiplication. There's no sign in between them. So whenever you see two numbers with no sign in between them, that automatically defaults to multiplication. So for example 1, the first thing I'm going to calculate is negative 4 times 2. I'm going to draw my triangle up here. Okay, that should look familiar. So if I'm multiplying a negative and a positive, all right, a negative and a positive, that means my answer is going to be negative. So I have a negative 8. I'm going to bring down my plus 3 because I'm not going to do anything with that. I'm going to bring down my minus sign. Okay, negative 9 times 5. Again, we have a negative times a positive. That's going to be negative 45. So now I've completed all my multiplication. There was no division in this problem. So now I'm left with my adding and subtracting. One thing I noticed right away, once I'm in this adding and subtracting step, is I have a minus and a negative that I'm going to make into add the opposite. Okay? So now you have your choices as far as how you're going to add and subtract, whether you go left to right, one at a time, or whether you group all your positives or good guys together, and then all your bad guys together. Okay, with this one, I think I'm going to group my positives together. I'm going to count my good guys and my bad guys. I have a negative 8, and I have a positive 3, and a positive 45. So if I look at all my good guys, I have 3 good guys and 45 more good guys. That's 48 good guys. And I have 8 bad guys. So I have 48 minus 8. And that means my final answer is going to be 40. You may want to type the original problem in on your calculator just to double check. All right, but again, you have to make sure you type everything in correctly and in the correct order and using the correct buttons to ensure that you are actually verifying it correctly. Okay? All right, next example. Now I notice that there's not only multiplication, but there's some division in here also. But again, I'm going to go left to right. So I'm going to look at what I have. It looks like I have a 6 times 2. Okay? There's a couple ways you can look at that. That's a 6 times 2. Or you can do a negative 6 times 2. It doesn't matter how you do it. However, make sure that you use either this sign right here only as a minus sign or only as a negative sign. You cannot use it as both. Okay? So I'm going to use it as a negative sign right now. I also have a negative 28 divided by a negative 4. So if I look at my multiplication and division, I have to do what comes first. So my 9 is not involved yet. I'm going to write that down. Negative 6 times 2, if I look up at my triangle, I have a negative times a positive. That's going to be a negative 12. Next, I have a negative 28 divided by a negative 4. So I could still use this triangle for division. A negative divided by a negative is going to give me a positive 28. So I'm going to put a plus 20, oh, sorry, not positive 28, positive 7. So I'm going to put a plus 7. And then I'm going to bring down this minus 9 that I haven't done anything with yet. So at this point, again, you have your choice as to how you're going to add and subtract. I'm going to go left to right on this one at a time. And I'm going to do 9 minus 12 first. So if I have 9 good guys and 12 bad guys, that means 9 of my good guys are going to take out 9 of my bad guys, but I'll still have 3 bad guys left. So I have a negative 3. I'm going to write down the rest, plus 7 minus 9. Next, I'm going to do negative 3 plus 7. So 3 bad guys and 7 good guys means 3 of those bad guys are going to take out 3 of my good guys, but I'm still going to have 4 good guys left. So I've got a positive 4. And I'm going to write down my minus 9. That's still at the end of my problem. Lastly, I have 4 good guys and 9 bad guys. 4 of those good guys are going to take away 4 of those bad guys, but I'm still going to have 5 bad guys left. So my final answer for this problem is negative 5. All right. We have one last problem to work on before I let you try some on your own. So you're looking for any multiplication and division. All right, and we're going to do those from left to right, whichever comes first. So I'm going to move this problem down a little bit so we have some room to work. Hopefully this works out all right. Yeah, that's what I figured. So this guy needs to drop down. There we go. All right, now we have some room to work. So I'm going to look at look for my multiplication and division. So it looks like I have some division here. I have multiplication here. And on the end, I have a combination of multiplication and division. But I'm just going to pick one of them. I'm going to pick whatever comes first. So I'm going to do just the 8 times 3 for now. So I've got 2 multiplications, I got 2 divisions. But in the first step here, I'm only going to do the first division and the 2 multiplications because the divided by negative 4 is at the end. I'm going to do that last. All right. Negative 25 divided by 5. I'm going to draw my triangle here again. Negative divided by a positive gives me a negative 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. I'm going to bring down my minus sign that I have right here. And I have a negative 2 times 4. Well, a negative times a positive is negative. So that becomes negative 8 because 2 times 4 is 8. I'm going to bring down my minus sign again. And now I'm going to do 8 times 3. Well, we talked about how we can't use our triangle for positive times positive, but we need to know that a positive times a positive is positive, in this case positive 24. And then I have my divided by negative 4 at the end. All right, so I go through and I look at everything I have. I still have this one division left. Okay, so I have to do that first because I'm still in my multiply and divide step. All right, now here again, you can include the minus sign if you want as a negative or not. I chose not to this time. All right, so I'm going to write down everything again, negative 5 minus negative 8 minus until I get to this box. And now I need to figure out what 24 divided by negative 4 is. Well, again, we have a positive divided by a negative, which is a negative number. Negative 6 in this case. And now I'm in my fourth step of order of operations. I'm in the add and subtract from left to right step. All right, all my multiplication and division is gone. So I'm looking at what I have left, negative 5 minus negative 8 minus negative 6. And I recognize the minus and the negatives next to each other, so I'm going to turn those into plus positives. Okay. Now for this problem, I'm going to group all my positives and negatives together. So I have a negative 5, I have a positive 8, and I have a positive 6. So if I put my positives together, I have 8 and 6 positives, which is 14 positives, and I have 5 negatives. So what I have left to figure out is 14 minus 5. And 14 minus 5 is 9. So our final answer for the third example is 9. Again, make sure you check with your calculator, but make sure you're also typing things in correctly so that you're checking it correctly. I would now like you to pause the video and try these examples on your own. When you have finished, you can start the video and I'll go through the answers with you. Okay, so for number 1, we have negative 6 plus negative 5 times 2 minus negative 4. It looks like we have one part that has multiplication. Okay, so I'm going to make my triangle just to help me remember what my answer is going to be. So if I have a negative times a positive, my answer is going to be negative. So I'm going to write down my negative 6 and my plus sign. I know negative 5 times 2 is negative because of my triangle, and then 5 times 2 is 10. And I'm going to finish off by writing the rest of my problem. So I've completed all multiplication and division. Now I'm on the end subtract step. So I see that I have a minus and a negative again, so I'm going to make that add the opposite, or plus a positive. And I'm going to go left to right on this one. All right, I have 6 bad guys and 10 bad guys. That's going to give me a total of 16 bad guys. Okay, there's no good guys taking any of them out. No positives to cancel any negatives. So I have 16 bad guys, or negative 16, and then I'm adding a positive 4. Well, negative 16 means I have 16 bad guys and 4 good guys. So 4 of the good guys are going to take out 4 of the bad guys, leaving me with an answer of negative 12. Okay? So hopefully we got negative 12 as our first answer. All right, number 2. Now this one has a little bit more multiplication and division. I'm going to just highlight where those are. Here's a negative 8 times 4. Here's a negative 28 divided by 7. Here's a negative 3 times negative 5. In this case, I've included all the pluses and minuses in with my multiplication and division. So when I'm done with this, as long as I put the sign of my answer in front of each number, I will still know if I'm adding or subtracting. Okay? So let me show you what I mean about that. Negative 8 times 4. We have a negative times a positive. Again, if I look at my triangle, I know that's a negative, and then 8 times 4 is 32. And I have negative 28 divided by 7. Again, a negative divided by a positive is going to be a negative. And in this case, it's a negative 4, so I'm going to put minus 4. Then I have a negative times a negative. So now I'm going to cross off both of my negatives, and I'm going to find that my answer is going to be positive. And in this case, it's going to be a positive. 3 times 5 is 15. All right, so I'm going to put together my good guys and bad guys. I have a negative 32 and a negative 4, and I have a positive 15. So if I have 32 bad guys and 4 more bad guys, that means I have a 36 bad guys, or a negative 36. And then with that, I have my 15 good guys, or my positive 15. So it looks like I have more bad guys. So my 15 good guys are going to take out 15 of those bad guys, and we have to figure out how many are left. So 36 negatives and 15 positives is going to leave me with 21 negatives, or 21 bad guys. So my answer is going to be negative 21. Last example. This one again is a little bit more involved than the last. Right away we have some division, multiplication, and then another multiplication at the end. So I'm going to look at what to do first. First thing I'm going to do, because I have division and multiplication right next to each other, I'm just going to do the 40 divided by negative 2. All right? And I'm just going to get that answer. So I know by making my triangle that a positive divided by a negative is going to be negative. And 40 divided by 2 is going to give me a negative 20. I'm going to write out the rest of the problem like that. So we did the first part, which was division. Right off the bat, the very first thing in the problem was division. We did that. So now I'm going to look at what else I have. I have multiplication here. I have subtraction that I'm not going to worry about. And then I have multiplication again here. So if I look at negative 20 times 5, again, a negative times a positive is going to give us a negative. And 20 times 5 is 100. I have my minus 8 that I'm writing down again. And I'm also going to write down this plus sign. And then 3 times negative 2, a positive times a negative, is going to be a negative 6 in this case. It looks like I've got all bad guys. I've got 100 bad guys. I've got 8 more bad guys, and then I've got 6 more bad guys. So if I add those all up, 100 bad guys plus 8 bad guys gives me 108 bad guys. And if I add 6 more bad guys to that already, I'm going to have a total of 114 bad guys, or an answer of negative 114. I know these problems can get overwhelming as they get bigger, but you just take it one step at a time. Work left to right through your multiplication and division, and then decide on whatever method you like for adding and subtracting. All right? And don't try to do the whole thing at once. Don't try to figure it all out at one time. It's going to get complicated and confusing. If you have questions, I'll answer them for you in class. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks.